Roblox is facing an issue right now. The games that it currently offers are, well, absolute trash. But hidden under the slop and provocative content lies an underrated gem with untapped potential, Deepwoken. Deepwoken is an open-world, permadeath RPG. You create characters and progress through combat to increase your level and stats. And today, I want to take a closer look at why this game is so cool and innovative, but also why it has some of the biggest issues that I have ever seen in gaming. When you first load into Deepwoken, you're greeted with a character creation screen. There's a lot of stuff that you don't have unlocked yet, and that's because the best way to make your characters better in Deepwoken is by dying with your previous characters. Deepwoken is a permadeath game. You spawn in the overworld and have 2 lives there. Your first life is completely normal, but when you die once, you respawn and your health bar is stained, or moldy as the community calls it. If you die when you're moldy, you get sent to a place called the Depths. The Depths is a mysterious underwater landscape covered with coral and infested with some of the strongest monsters that this game has to offer. You can escape the Depths through a few different ways, but if you die in the Depths, it's game over. You wake up in the fragments of self and are forced to confront yourself and move on from this character. But all is not lost. You can pass down weapons and items from this character to the next. You also gain echoes. These echoes help you to unlock new things in the character creation menu to make your next character even stronger. This is essentially the Deepwoken gameplay loop. You make a character and play with it until you inevitably die in the depths, which is called wiping, and then you make a newer, stronger character. The combat in this game has 2 main paths to choose from. You can either choose to be a physical fighter or an attunement fighter. A physical fighter is what you would expect, using weapons such as swords, bows, axes, stilettos, and others to defeat their enemies. There are also abilities that each player has, which are called mantras. Physical fighters use mantras that are usually based on strength or their weapon, such as a punch or a stab. But on the other hand, attunement fighters use elemental magic to fight. In Deepwoken, there are things called attunements, which give the user a certain elemental power. There are things such as fire, ice, wind, metal, and blood. There are also attunement mantras. Attunement users aren't just limited to physical mantras. But there actually is a third, more niche fighting style that completely rejects the use of mantras at all. If a player decides to follow the path of revenge against the song, which I'll explain later, they can choose to become a Silent Heart. Silent Hearts completely reject the use of mantras and attunements entirely. They just fight with their weapons. But becoming a Silent Heart requires you to swear an oath, which is another mechanic in Deepwoken that makes your characters even stronger and more diverse. You can choose to follow paths in Deepwoken, and those paths grant you certain abilities. For Silent Heart, the path to reject all magic entirely grants them stat bonuses in exchange for their mantras. The Oath of Dawnwalker grants the ability to wield light magic by following the path of banishment against the Void Sea. There are tons of oaths to choose from, and they can make or break your character's overall build. And just for some context, a character's build is just what stats you invest in, what weapon you use, what oath you swear, among others. It's just a way to say what your character does. If I have a character that's made to run away, I call it a track star build. If I have a build to kill certain bosses, I call it a boss killing build. But there are tales that echo through the world of Deepwoken of what happens when your soul resonates close to the song. If your soul and the song are close in frequency and you experience a near-death experience, you awaken your soul's resonance. A resonance takes the form of a bell on the player's hip and grants the character a special ability. These resonances, often just called bells, can grant a character PvE or PvE abilities, such as teleportation, damage reflection, or even a separate pocket dimension. These bells add a ton of flair and depth to builds, and have such cool lore. There's one final, smaller part of a build that I've yet to talk about so far: murmurs. Murmurs are a sort of miniature oath that you can gain by doing a quest. There are currently 3 to choose from: Ardor, Tacit, and Rhythm. These murmurs do a variety of things for PvP and PvE combat. They let you increase your weapon damage, turn invisible, or sense people around you. They don't make or break a build, but they can most definitely be the difference between a good and a great build. Deepwoken's combat centers around various weapons, mantras, attunements, oaths, and murmurs. All of these factors blend together to create an interesting and compelling combat system. Now, we know how builds work and how to fight, But what do we fight against? Luckily, Deepwoken offers an array of PvE challenges, including bosses and wave-type challenges. And just for some more context, PvE means player versus environment. It's when the player faces challenges that are not other players. PvP is when a player faces another player in combat. The bosses in this game are actually really cool. There's the Duke of Arisia, who ruled over Arisia and subsequently caused the disappearance of Arisia's major islands. There's the Ferryman, a descendant of the Krulian race that resides in the Void Sea. Him being a Krulian, he's the middle ground between the drowned gods and humanity. There's Primadon, a giant sea monkey creature that resides in Monkey's Paw. And there's Chaser, a black diver who went on an expedition deep into the depths and went insane. This is just a small look at the bosses that Deepwoken offers, but there's one final boss that I'm going to keep a secret for now, because it's a major part of the lore that I'll explain later. Alongside the bosses, there are other PvE challenges that challenge a player's wave combat. With bosses you can memorize their moves and predict what they're going to do next, but with other challenges it's either random or too impossible to predict what's going to happen. Two of the main challenges being the Diluvian Mechanism and Hell Mode. The Diluvian Mechanism is a spinning device that summons predetermined waves of enemies. If you complete said waves, you're given a reward with the reward value increasing the further you go. The final wave of the Diluvian Mechanism is Wave 50, and it's a difficult challenge, even for the best PvE players. If you want a less scripted PvE wave challenge, Hell Mode is a good option. You activate Hell Mode by having multiple people ring a blazing bell deep in the depths. This causes the enemy spawn rate to increase by 10-fold. The rewards are usually equal to or better than the Diluvian Mechanism, but you can't do Hell Mode alone. Both of these challenges take place in the depths, meaning that if you die, your character's gone forever. On the other hand of PvE, let's take a look at Deepwoken's PvP aspect. There are a ton of ways to PvP in Deepwoken, with the most popular being the Chime of Conflict. In the Chime of Conflict, you cannot use your resonance and must only fight with your weapons, attunements, oaths, and murmurs. It brings a level of competitiveness to PvP that isn't found in many other places. Chime of Conflict takes place in a separate, arena-like realm where you can have fully isolated fights, but in the overworld it can get a lot crazier. There's also a special event that takes place on weekends called Battle Royale. It's basically Fortnite but in Deepwoken. You and a ton of other people drop into a custom map and have to scavenge for weapons, mantras, and even resonances. It's a super fun weekly event that I really enjoy playing with my friends. If you choose to PvP in the overworld, you can take one of three routes. First, you can become a Voidwalker and take bounties on players. This gives experience and other rewards, but it can get boring after you've maxed out your build. This is when people start to do the second overworld PvP method, ganking. People gank with their guilds, which are just player-made clans where you can join your friends. Ganks can take forever, and people make builds specifically for ganks and having as much sustain as possible. But if you want a more competitive gank setting, the third overworld PvP option opens. War Mode is an event in the overworld that puts people from different guilds against each other. Two people from different guilds ring the Warcaller bell and it activates War Mode. People in the server are tagged by their guild and a fight ensues to see who the strongest guild is. This event has more rewards than regular ganking, including rewards for your guild such as PvP score, and chests containing high-level loot. This is basically the PvP equivalent of Hell Mode. With all of this being said about Deepwoken's combat, I want to talk a little bit more about the lore of Deepwoken. I probably said some words in the combat section that you didn't understand or know what they were, so that will all be covered here. Predating the year 0 is the age of the Old World. This is when the world of Lumen, Deepwoken's world, was young and humanity was at its peak. This was before the time of the depths, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist. Immensely powerful beings were in an eternal slumber deep in the depths, called drowned gods. Not much is currently known about them, but they are one of the most powerful beings in the Deepwoken verse. At this time, humanity had discovered a tool that they called the Song. It originated from either heaven or the depths and is the basis of all magic in Deepwoken. But humanity started using the Song too much, called the Cataclysm, and it displeased the drowned gods Yunshul, Etheron, and Coralfiend. This caused a major turning point in the history of Lumen, now called the Tides. This is when the Void Sea started to rise and people started being sent to the depths, which is called drowning. The drowned gods took Lumen from a landmass civilization to one that is now separated into luminance divided entirely by water. The drowned gods also punished an entire city, which is called a Great Drowning. The city of Seltor was dragged into the depths, where it now permanently resides. Now, something I haven't mentioned yet is that the depths you've been shown so far are only a small section of the depths. you've been shown Layer 1 of the depths, named Skyphosia. This is where most drowned souls and monsters reside, along with one of the drowned gods, Yunshul. But there are a total of 9 layers in the depths, and we can actually visit Layer 2 of the depths currently. There are 2 subsections of Layer 2, the first being New Kirsa, the Sleeping City, which is a civilization built by the Kirsans to keep a drowned god at bay, that drowned god being the scion of Etheron. The city was constructed as a chamber to house him, and due to his sheer power, the city is trapped in an infinite time loop due to intense time dilation. But on the 9th cycle, the Kirsans grew greedy and tried to harness Etheron's power for themselves. This is when a mist descended on them and turned them into the hostile people that we can currently see today. This is the current final and hardest boss of Deepwoken. The Scion of Etheron is a massive skeletal puppet that Etheron himself controls. This is not actually the drowned god Etheron, but is merely a puppet. The entire city of New Kirsa is hidden by a section above, named the Eternal Gale. The environment mimics that of a snowy mountain, except the snow isn't really snow. They're parasites that eat you alive. Deep in the Eternal Gale resides Chaser. Beating him grants access to New Kirsa, and currently only 2 layers have been released, but from what we know about the next layer, it has something to do with fire and volcanoes. But anyways, after the tides and the drowning of Seltor, a few main factions become superpowers of Lumen. Deepwoken Verse 1 focused on this part of Lumen's history, the first superpower being Etria, led by the Lord Regent. He is the 4th prophet of the Ministry, which is a cult that worships the depths. The Lord Regent wants to start a war and incite another great drowning. Another superpower is Arisia, led by the Duke of Arisia. He was a noble of Seltor before the Great Drowning, and now leads Arisia, trying to prevent another drowning. The final superpower is the Ministry, led by the First Prophet. Their main goal is to sink the entire world into the depths. Not much is known about the First Prophet, except for the fact that there's someone called a Deepwoken. A Deepwoken is a human who is merged with the fragment of a drowned god to gain immense power and immortality in exchange for their humanity. This is the main lore of Deepwoken, and this point is where us, the players, enter the world of Lumen. Now, as cool and in-depth as the world of Deepwoken is, it isn't without its issues, the biggest of which being the developers and moderators of the game. I can't be too harsh on the developers because it's hard to be a developer, but they give almost no transparency on the update schedule. There was a major update planned after Layer 2 called Deepwoken Conquest, and it was in development for over 2 years, but we barely heard anything about it. Then suddenly, the developers came out and scrapped the idea in exchange for a sooner Layer 3 update. It wasn't an issue that they scrapped the idea, but just the fact that they left the community in the dark for such a long time was such a big issue.
Wait, whose slots are getting wiped? What do you mean slots are getting wiped?
If you joined, your slots getting wiped.
She's the one behind the nerfs.
Bro, just roll back the update. Why did they do that?
The other reason for this, it's too late. People already got wiped. Just roll back the people and
they have
fix,
to shut down the server.
Shut down.
Oh, did you see what this guy said? Verse 4 is here. Void everyone's slots. Replace base deep with Vow of Iron and only add recolored legendaries.
Oh yeah, let's go. Wait, if everything's if there's only
You guys,
legendaries,
are you better open the
Agamatsu, watch your back. Just revert the whole up. This guy is speaking straight
That
facts.
guy actually does have a point, man.
So
Just
slots
roll
are being
everything
voided
back
out
and
of
roll-
nowhere.
Roll the whole thing back already.
Yes.
Good thing I'm level 3 in the depths.
The developers also don't know how to balance. They make something super overpowered and then nerf it into the floor the next update. Or they change something and make it insanely broken and either nerf it to the point of being unusable or keep it super overpowered for way too long. They've also yet to release the Central Luminant. It's been 3 to 4 years since the release of the last Luminant and we haven't heard any news yet. All we know is that there's a Central Luminant planned, but it's not yet to be released. The developers have also recently hired a new developer, Agamatsu. Agamatsu's a Deepwoken YouTuber and has been for a few years. He's had some decent ideas and balancing changes so far, but it's still really weird to have a YouTuber to be an official member of the developer team. One of the biggest issues of the Deepwoken team is, of course, the moderation team. There's an entire series on YouTube by Rayconter just reading the stupid ban appeals. Moderators will permanently ban you over the smallest things and then not give you a reason on why you were banned. You can write a detailed death threat to someone and only receive a 1-month ban, but if you tap the W and S keys behind someone, you get permanently banned. It's just such a stupid and backward system. Another main issue is the Void Walkers in this game. Void Walkers are essentially bounty hunters, and there's a number of ways why this origin is kind of annoying and overall just bad. Some of which being that they can target underprepared players and PvE players, and the progression path overall just sucks. But another related problem is something called a depth ganker. These people will go into the depths on a PvP build and kill freshies and PvE players for literally no reason at all. This wipes the player and destroys their builds. While I was writing the script, I was playing Deepwoken with my friend who's new to the game, and I was helping him escape from the depths, and then he got attacked by 2 max power people and they wiped him. It's just really upsetting to see, especially since it was his first ever build. Another really sour point of this game is the monetization that it has. I know that it's a Roblox game, so its revenue isn't exactly the best, but it really does hurt to see. Deepwoken is a permadeath game, but you can purchase revives from the fragments of self. You can also pay for new character slots. These kind of ruin the point of the game. The revive purchase is being the main perpetrator. What's the point of playing a permadeath game if you can just pay your way through it? It completely ruins the point of the game. My final major gripe with the game is cheese builds and atrocious metas. Because the developers don't know how to balance or playtest, it results in an insane amount of broken metas that basically make the game unplayable. I remember when they released the stupid turret mantra and tons of people made tower defense builds and just ran away in fights. It was actual torture to try to fight against. There's also builds where you literally are blind and can't see what your opponent is doing. When I was gathering background footage for this video, I faced one of these players and it was actual torture to fight. How in the hell am I supposed to parry this? I can barely even see what he's doing. But with all of that being said, Deepwoken is actually an amazing game with an amazing concept. The lore and combat mechanics are deep and compelling, and they work together so well. One of the only things holding this game back from being the best game on Roblox is their developer and moderation team. But after looking out over all the sea of trash games on Roblox, Deepwoken is one of the best options. It's just waiting for you to enter its world and experience the marvels that it can offer. If you enjoyed this video, I would like to ask you to please like, subscribe, and join the Discord. All of it helps me a ton. I'm so glad that I got to talk about this game for one of my videos because I have been obsessed with this game for years now. I would highly recommend playing it if you haven't, and thank you all so much for watching. Your viewership is the only reason that I can do all of this. But with all of that said, I hope you all have a great day, and goodbye.